When Quake landed on the Nintendo 64, it was still a fun game, but being a direct port of the PC original with very little added, you couldn't help but feel it was a rushed job. Arriving in 1999 was the sequel Quake II, developed by Raster Productions, the same team who ported the original Quake to the system. It was once again published by Activision, but anyone who thought this would be another rush port of the PC game would be in for a pleasant surprise. You see, the game's producer Marty Stratton quickly realised the shortcomings of Quake's first outing on the console and knew exactly what was needed to rejuvenate the franchise for Nintendo 64. Firstly, he set about 3 key areas which needed to be improved. Firstly and most importantly, Quake II needed to be an original game. Fans of Quake had mostly bypassed the first game on the console because they'd already played it 2 years earlier on its PC release. Secondly, he wanted the game to be fast and take advantage of the console's expansion pack. And finally, he wanted a true deathmatch mode featuring 4 players, as the original Quake had only offered 2 players on the N64. Whilst Quake II is based on the Quake universe, the main selling point and the reason I picked this up on day one was that it was a totally new game exclusive to the console. I had spent months playing the PC game, and knowing that this version was developed exclusively for the console made me itching to play it. In terms of storyline, then you should know what to expect. You're a space marine, the Strogg have invaded Earth and you go on a mission across the planets to take them down, and that's pretty much it. But there are some nice additions such as secret paths to take you through alternate routes in the game depending on your mission outcomes, and also there are some secret levels to unlock. When playing the game, pretty much the first thing you'll notice is that this is one great looking game, and it's enhanced even further with the expansion pack. The high-res mode has some of the best real-time lighting in any N64 game, and the textures all look sharp and crisp. The expansion pack is used to bump up the textures, but also the frame rate, so for the best gameplay experience you really do need the little box of joy in your console. On the downside, some of the particles do look to be a little out of place. While everything else looks smooth and detailed, the particles from your weapons and explosions can appear to be blocky at times, and it doesn't quite work in the context of the game. But in a smart move, the explosions are rotated between polygons and sprites depending on the situation. If you hit an enemy dead on, a sprite effect will be loaded to keep the frame rate high. If you miss, then a polygon will be shown instead. Whilst you will rarely notice this unless you are specifically looking for it, it does mean that the game rarely suffers from any slowdown in the single player mode. I'm also of the opinion that this is one of the best controlling games on the system as well. You really have the best of both worlds, as if you prefer the turret control system, then that's the one which is default in the game. But if you're more of a retro gamer like myself, then you can switch to the classic Doom controls. Whichever method you choose, everything feels responsive and tight, and rarely will you suffer a death because of dodgy controls or not being able to dodge oncoming attacks. The 12 classic Quake II weapons all make a return here, including the beloved BFG. There's none which jump out as being overly powerful or too weak. It's nicely balanced, and it is down to knowing which gun to select to take down certain enemies. As you work your way through the game stages, you'll gradually be introduced to an ever-increasing range of enemies, all with their own strengths and weaknesses, and so knowing which gun to use really helps you to save ammo and your life at times, because this becomes really important later on in the game. If you've watched my review of Doom 64, then you'll know that one of the most standout features for me was the sound. Yet again, Raster Productions delivers an eerie, atmospheric soundtrack, which matches the mood of the game perfectly. With the game coming on a 12 meg cart, there's not tons of variation, but with how crisp the enemy sound effects are, you will like the subtleness of the game's music, as you'll spend more time listening out for enemy grunts and moans to give you an indication about where they are. With Quake II on PC being the most online played game of 1998, then it's no surprise that the multiplayer aspect was going to be a key game changer on this version. It features 10 unique arenas made exclusively for this release, as well as support for up to 4 players. There are also 4 multiplayer game modes from the classic deathmatch, team-based games and flag wars. Each of them offers a fresh feeling when playing with friends, and having customizable character profiles really adds something nice into the proceedings. In 2-player mode, the resolution and detail remains more or less the same from the single-player mode. There is also next to no slowdown to speak of except for exchanges of heavy fire on screen. In 4-player mode there is a clear graphical resolution drop, however it's easy to see the levels due to the clear and solid design choices which were made. There is also some slowdown in the frame rates, and as you can see from the footage it can be quite heavy at times, but it doesn't really make the game unplayable. Because of course whichever multiplayer mode you play, having the expansion pack will make a whole world of difference, and if I'm being honest then the multiplayer mode should only be played with the expansion pack in the console. The main question is, does the multiplayer mode beat GoldenEye? And frankly it gets close, but it doesn't quite feel as solid. Whilst GoldenEye allowed a fine balance between stealth and going all out guns blazing, Quake II really relies on the fastest finger wins concept, and it's quite honestly a spectacle to see when 4 good players duke it out. It's certainly more action packed and faster than GoldenEye, but the depth isn't quite there to match it. Quake II is definitely and honestly one of the best games on the console. Many people overlooked it thinking it was a direct port of the PC original, so may have missed out on this one first time around. I urge you then to go back and play this game, as not only is it cheap and easy to find on the retro scene, it's one which has hours worth of gameplay and pretty much unlimited amount of multiplayer awesomeness. I picked this up on day one, but when did you first play it? Did you expect this to be another port like the original Quake when the console was released, or like me were you itching for your next Quake fix? Or did you skip this as GoldenEye was still reigning strong in your home, and were there other first person shooters that you preferred and loved instead? If so, let me know what they were. Let's kick off the discussion in the comments down below, and until next time.